Wholehearted Business Show. I'm Laura, and this week on the show, I've got a real treat for you guys. Now, this is a longer than usual episode, but honestly, it is 100% worth it. So I am interviewing Jo Hutton. Now, Jo is a yoga teacher. She has a thriving in-person studio. She also has an online community as well, an online membership community, and she also teaches yoga teachers too. So she's got lots and lots going on, and I've known Jo for about 7 or 8 years. And we've had some conversations recently, just kind of messaging each other on Instagram about some of the stuff that we've been seeing in the online kind of entrepreneurship space. And I just thought it'd be really fun for me and Jo to have. And this is just a conversation. It's not really an interview. It's just me and Jo chatting. And you'll very quickly see that it's just a very kind of down to earth, honest, unedited conversation between two friends, where we explore things around ethics in the online coaching industry, a lot about money mindset, a lot of fantastic, hilarious stories from Jo, just some fantastic stuff. And I really think you guys will enjoy this. So it is a slightly longer episode, but I didn't want to edit any of it out because it's just all so valuable. Even just listening back to it, I've had so many little aha moments, even just listening back to myself actually. But honestly, give it a listen. It is so hilariously funny, and there's so many things I think that you're going to get out of this, especially around money mindset. There's loads and loads of juicy stuff in there as well. So give it a listen. And as we say at the very end of the episode, it would be lovely if you have any feedback for us. So please do reach out directly to Jo especially, and let I know what you think of this episode, and me of course. But let us both know what you think of this episode of the show, and I'm sure you're going to have a really good laugh listening to this, and also get lots of insights and lots of things that are hopefully going to spark off stuff for you around all sorts of different topics as well. Let's get stuck in. So welcome to Jo. I've known Jo for, I think it's been seven to 8 years, because I realised when I was saying that Finney's going to be 8, and I can remember, I think it was the mum and baby yoga. And and I couldn't go because he had his heart sorted out. And I think it was around about then, so it's been quite a long time, hasn't it? And two, lots of yoga classes and 2 retreats later, and here we are. So do you want to introduce yourself first of all, so people know a bit more about who you are?
Yeah, of course. So my name is Jo Hutton. I'm a yoga teacher. I run an in-person city centre studio that I've ran for 6 years now. It's a thriving business. I also run an online community with over 200 members that boomed in COVID, and then I'm having the whole what happens to the online space when people go back into in-person things. And I also run a teacher training school for yoga teachers, and I'm just starting to do teacher training, mentoring for yoga teachers as well. So that's who I am.
Very exciting stuff. And one of the reasons that I wanted to have Jo on the show was because I think we've been having chats, haven't we, on Instagram, and I feel like we just get each other when it comes to the online space. And I just thought it'd be really interesting just for us just to have a conversation, so that not really necessarily interviewee style or anything, but just for us to have a bit of a conversation about some of the stuff that we're seeing, the coaching, not just the coaching, but the online entrepreneurship kind of space. I think what's really useful, what's been really helpful for me about having the conversations that I've had with you has been that you judge yourself a little bit. I think that's what I was finding. I was thinking, because that looks fishy to me, is it just my money mindset? Is it just me? Am I blocked? And it's almost being able to have conversations with you has been really helpful, because it's maybe I do have some blocks, but actually I don't think it is just that. I think it's also the fact that this is bollocks, a lot of what it is that we're seeing in the online coaching space. So I thought maybe we could just have a bit of a chat about, I suppose one of the things that started us off having a conversation was seeing a coach who charges, was it 20k or something for their coaching program, and just being astonished. I think it was that anyone would, that who's paying for this? That's what we're saying as well. Who was paying for it? And yeah, and it was an interesting jumping off point, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was
some that conversation.
And it was that thing of, are you seeing this as well, or is it me? And I think you're right. I think there's this really insidious, it's some of the more toxic parts of the online industry and the online coaching space have managed to create this like gaslighty kind of culture where if you call anyone out, the problem is within you. And I think that you see it quite a lot in the yoga world as well, where they've managed to make this thing that we have a core belief in our culture that is, it's all problems start in the individual, and they've managed to make it wider so that they then can't be called out. Because if you, and it feels gaslighty for one.
It's just, isn't it? Yeah, that's the word was coming into my head before as well.
It feels like you're being gaslit, and it makes you question your own judgment. And I think a lot of what we're seeing in the online space is a mirror image of the things that are toxic within our society and culture anyway. A lot of the terms around abundance and manifestation and like all of these really powerful and useful ideas that can transform not just ourselves but society, and turn it into about money and capitalism, and saying the definition of success just being that exact same definition of success that's been pushed down our throats since the beginning of time. And one thing that I'm feeling very much when within myself is like, oh, this feels very like the feelings that I'm getting from consuming this feel like the same feelings I used to get looking at women's magazines.
Yes.
So, like when it was all about like when I had like a borderline eating, I had disordered eating. I probably wouldn't say that I had an eating disorder, but I had disordered eating as the same as every woman in the universe. That feeling of, is it me? Is there a problem with me? Like intellectually, I know that this isn't, and yet secretly I'll look at pictures of them, and there's something in my soul that is, no, that's the definition of success, even though intellectually I know it's not. Does that make sense?
It does make sense, absolutely. I think it's really interesting, that parallel between like magazines and because again, I think something that I've definitely experienced is this comparison and this feeling like, it's just this kind of feeling like you're never going to be good enough. There's always going to be someone else out there who is better all of the time, and that you never. And it is a lot. I think a lot like the magazines, the stuff that we had growing up, and it's really interesting to allow to help them unpick it a little bit.
Yeah, and it's interesting because both me and you, objectively from the outside, have really, and this is going to sound really big-headed, but I think it's true. I think we have very aspirational lifestyles. Like I make my money teaching yoga. I have a job that I absolutely love. I make good money from it. Like I pay my mortgage with it. If I make more money than I ever thought I would make doing any job, never mind doing a job that I love, and yet that feeling of inside, it's like the more money you make, that ceiling just gets higher and higher. And it used to be that it would be like I would make X amount and I would be like, there's no way I can move. And then you do make that, and then you're like, yeah, but I'll not feel settled. And it used to be like that with your weight, or like there's a health coach that I follow that is always saying body image has nothing to do with body size. And I feel like that's the same with your finance.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And it's just even you saying that, setting off so many like little fireworks in my brain there, because I'm thinking a lot about like when I had a really disordered relationship with food, and it was like it's a bit like, again, that there's a certain way until you physically disappear. I think with money, and I think this is one of the things that I've struggled with a little bit, is it's this kind of like constantly feeling like you need to be like there's another level to get to. And I think that's something I really struggle with, is just this feeling like I'm never going to be satisfied, like I'm never going to get to the point where, I'm done. But if I get to 6 figures, then where do you go after that? And it just feels, I don't know, I think until I did read something recently that kind of helped us with that, and I think trying to help see that space of like still working for something new, because we all grow, we all want our lives to grow and to do new things and to achieve new things. But I think with money and in the business sense of it, it feels different, if that makes sense as well. It just feels like this constant, like never, once you've got 6 figures, then you've got to go for 7 figures, and then you've got some people banging on about 8 figures and stuff like that, which is just crackers. And at what point can you call yourself successful based on that measurement? Because it's never, it's
For me, I don't think it's about success. I think it's about safety.
Yes.
And my personal experience with money when I was growing up, I've done quite a lot of money mindset stuff, was that I never felt safe when it came to money. Like my family we came from very poor background. Like we lived in a council estate. There was a couple of times where we had to move home because of like divorce and all of my money memories, I've never felt safe. And my husband, on the other hand, he comes from quite a financially stable, and he's always had every month his salary goes in, he knows how much it's going to be. And in some ways, my understanding of money has meant that I've never had a salary. So it also means I don't have a ceiling, so I can manifest these and create these and build these amazing things, but it doesn't feel like it's built on a bedrock of like safety. It feels like it just feels magical. And so there's always that thing of I have to build. So it used to be like I wanted to pay off. So it used to be that I wanted a house that I own, and now it's I'll settle once I've paid off my mortgage. Like I'll settle once I've got so much money in my bank account that I'll be able to retire. And then it'll be like, oh, but then what if the economy crashes? And actually, there's never ever going to be a point where your money is where you're safe, unless but even if you were a billionaire, a nuclear war could happen. Like you don't know what's around, and so it feels like I'm trying to store nuts for the winter, but I don't know what the winter is, so I just need more nuts.
I think because Denise Duffield Thomas has got these like money archetypes, hasn't it? It sounds much like an accumulator type where you're like kind of like you scribbling stuff away. But I think it is interesting, like that kind of what's enough. Do we ever get to the point where it's enough? And what's our relationship with having enough in our business and still wanting it to grow, but that being like wanting that growth being like coming from a really positive place rather than trying to fill a hole inside. And I think that's one of the things that I've definitely over the last few months have struggled with, because I think with me it was always feeling like I'm trying to fill this hole of feeling good enough through my business. And for me as a business coach, feeling good enough is having the numbers, like the shiny numbers, but that's never ever who decides when that's enough or what it is. And it was always like trying to fill this hole. And I think what's shifted a little bit is that I can now see it from, it's almost like flipped it over, so that it feels like when I'm striving for more growth, it's not coming from this place that I'm trying to fill this deep hole of self-worth through my business. Because we do, I don't know if you found this, Jo, but like how intertwined our businesses can be with our self-worth sometimes.
But I have an online membership, and one of the things about having an online membership that no one tells you is what it feels like when someone cancels.
I know what that feels like as well before as well. So it feels really personal, doesn't it?
Personal. And it's not, but it just feels so personal. And I suppose I don't know if I ever want to completely get rid of that entwinement, because the high is so when somebody buys something and you get that email where it's you've completely changed my life, or every so often you'll get a lovely email of someone being like, I've been following you for years and I just wanted to reach out and let you know that you got me through some really hard times. And that feels like that is such a high that and I'm like, if I was more emotionally regulated I wouldn't get the highs. I wouldn't get
I get what you mean,
but I wouldn't get the highs as well. And you've got to take the rough with the smooth, and I suppose it's fine. But it's totally enmeshed with how you own, especially because we run such personal brands. So we don't hide behind, and I'm not saying hide behind in a negative way, because I think it can be really useful. But I think because of the kind of people we are, and because I think we really, both of us, really care about the success of our clients. This conversation about money, but I think that both of us are led by our clients. I think we're very both client led, and we don't hide. We don't have that buffer zone around us, so of course it's going to feel personal. It's going to feel really personal, because it is personal.
It is personal. This is it exactly. But I do think it's interesting, and it's certainly something that I've had conversations with my clients about. It is this just deep connection I think that we have with our businesses, just because of the nature of them, and often because of how we are in the world that we don't really like. I've been talking shit on the internet about myself for like 10, actually 12 years when I started my blog, with very little separation really, and that's always felt okay. I think it's just been interesting from like I say, the point of view of money and how our businesses feel, and I suppose our projections of other people as well. And from like a comparison point of view, do you find yourself comparing yourself to other people in the yoga space or in the online business space? Have you like had any comparison stuff? Because it's been a big thing for me, definitely.
I don't think I compare myself to other yoga teachers as much, which is really interesting that you're saying that, because I don't compare myself to other yoga teachers, because I think I operate in my business in such a different way to most yoga teachers. Like I am very online. So I think I compare myself more to online coaches, which is weird because I don't have any online coaching, but it feels like they feel like my peers.
Yeah.
Which is weird because I'm a yoga teacher, so surely I should be comparing myself to other yoga teachers. But I think that when it comes to yoga teachers, there's like a ceiling of how far you can go without becoming a studio owner. And I actually, maybe it's because I feel so comfortable in that identity. I used to.
Yeah.
But do you never get this thing where once you're good at something, you think it must be worthless because you can do it?
Yeah, totally. Yeah, definitely.
Like, well, if I can do it,
and sometimes you might think like, I'm writing this, or I'm doing this podcast episode, or I'm doing this whatever about this stuff, and surely it's obvious for everybody else, but actually it's not, because it's just because you've actually been doing it for 10 years. Do you know what I mean? So I think it is easy to think of it in that way, definitely.
And so I don't really compare myself to other yoga teachers, but I definitely compare myself to other small like business owners. And I think that's because the yoga part of it is so visible. People outside of it, like I can have conversation about the yoga teaching part with people and they'll get it, but the running of the business side is the part that people don't like. And it doesn't feel like, I don't want to talk to people and be like, oh, it's so hard. My favorite, like getting up and I had to teach 3 classes today and that was so hard. Like people don't want to hear that. So it's like, that's a conversation to have with people who understand the realities of. And I think I always think of you as someone, and this is really strange because we probably chat maybe like once or twice a year, but I feel like you're like a business sister. I feel like you've been like because our businesses have been run pretty much exactly the same amount of time. And I think we've got about the same level of success. So I think we've probably, when you're saying your numbers, I'm like, yeah, that's like pretty much identical to like your like. And so I feel like we can have these conversations because at the point, the struggles that we're having tend to be the same at the same point, because it's the struggles of what happens when you've been in business 10 years and all these new people are coming and it's changing, and like it's a different thing, isn't it?
It is, yeah, definitely. And I think just the coaching industry itself, really, we were having some pre-chat, weren't we, before we hit record, and things about just the way that some of the things, because I wonder as well, I don't know, has it always been, recently we were having a brief conversation about just some of the what we feel is not so ethical business practices and things like that. Does it just feel like it's a bit more inward fit? Like, I know you were saying that you tend to follow people who are quite ethical in the way that they do business, and I think I'm quite similar. So I don't say like some of the really shady stuff, but you were saying, without, obviously we're not mentioning news, but you saw some kind of shady-ish kind of stuff going on. But I don't know if it's getting worse. I think that makes sense. If more people are like, I don't know, like doing things that are selling in a way that's not very ethical.
I think people have realised that there's money to be made. It used to be that if you said you were an online coach or you taught yoga online, people would look at you like a little bit weird and be like, there's money in that.
Yeah.
You know, if the test is always, does my father-in-law understand it? And like 10 years ago, my father-in-law would be like, but just make sure that you have a proper job too.
Yes.
Now people understand that. And I think part of that is because people have been saying, I've been making, and I think that recently we've seen like a backlash against a lot of the MLM stuff. So a lot of the stuff like Forever Living, I don't know if I'm allowed to say that.
Yeah.
I'm sure I'm not naming and shaming, but like a lot of things that people, so your mum would sell, like there was, can you remember there was always somebody on your street that sold Avon?
But there's always Tupperware, but like I can remember Tupperware party. That was a thing, wasn't it? I'm not just, it was definitely a thing.
Those things that will probably not, we wouldn't have been able to see as much have shifted it, because obviously if you do online coaching, it's perfect, isn't it? If you're just selling if you don't actually have to do any like proper coaching, and you just, which is really hard, have to do the like selling the package, and you can get a package to sell from your upline, then isn't that just the perfect MLM? Because you don't even have to buy any products. It's just a straight line into, and like I'm seeing a lot of like travel agent ones, and
interesting.
It all seems to be really similar language. And if you notice, like a lot of the coaches are using the same scripts. So I think the people who would have been doing MLM stuff have shifted into, because what it is, essentially what all of those things are, is it's taken advantage of the fact that we live in a crap capitalist society. So there's young mums who can't go and get jobs because the childcare is really expensive, and so it's these people in these really crap situations, and then they're being given a lifeline of, I'm a young mum and I can make 7 figures and I only work but they're not actually, there is no business behind it, and actually, if you don't have anything to sell, and I do think there's people that are making money, there's people that are making money, but I think they're few and far between. And I think we're at a time where people like me and you, who really do have a product that we sell online, we're going to have to like hold the fort a little bit while we have this rocky thing, and then when the backlash comes, we can be like, okay, and back to
because I think there is that thing where I think at times I've looked at what some other people, and again I think we both work with business owners to a certain degree, don't we? We see that you're starting to coach yoga teachers, which I think is fantastic, and I think you like looking at what other people are doing in the way that they sell. And again, because I've thought, is it this not just some kind of giant pyramid scheme where like you can say that you make 7 figures or 6 figures, and then because I can teach you how to make 6 figures, therefore pay me £20,000 and I will show you how to make 6 figures. And it becomes, and then you're teaching them basically to sell. There used to be, I won't mention the name again just in case I get into any trouble, but there was this one coach, and you could tell whether or not a coach had been through her business school, and it's not Marie Forleo that I'm talking about, someone else, but you could see, because they'd all had this very stylized kind of like glossy lifestyle brand photo shoot, and it's a bit like that thing where you're just like, am I the only person seeing this? But like, how is this okay? Like the selling, and this is the thing that kind of it's always a red flag for me. Are they selling the lifestyle? Or is it just this illusionary thing, or they're just hiring a really lovely Airbnb? Because at the end of the day, and I mean, this is the thing that I've sometimes thought, I could go and hire a lovely Airbnb, have a wonderful photo shoot. I could say, I'll teach you how to make 6 figures. And I probably would be making 6 figures within a couple of months, because people would buy into that, because it's like those kind of things sell. But at the same time, I feel like as I say that, do I sound like I'm just a bit of age because I'm not doing that? But at the same time, I just think that's so wrong that people are doing that, and it's often people who are really desperate who are easily taken in by that, and it's not the truth. Do you know what I mean?
I had exactly the same thing so I have never ever marketed my yoga classes using my own body. Obviously, you can see my body, so I can't get another body, and I can't deny the fact that being what is socially thought of as an attractive body shape, I know that sounds really bad, but
I know what you mean.
I can't get away from the fact that makes my life as a yoga teacher easier. But when I first started teaching yoga, every single yoga teacher would have pictures of themselves in the bikini on a beach. That conversation hadn't happened yet, and I was having that internal thing of like, why don't I just put on a bikini, do some stretches of pictures of myself stretching, and be like, yoga can give you abs like this. And the reason why I never did it was because, and I never showed doing advanced yoga poses, and the reason why I never did it, even though I could do those advanced yoga poses, I never used that as a selling point, because I just think it's perpetuating the toxic messages of society as large. And that's exactly the same thing that's happening now, where it's like, but with the money thing, where it's, yeah, you could, but, and it would be easier if I had at the start done that, I would have 20,000 followers on Instagram now. I would have, like, it would be easier. I could have even been like, oh, and now I go against that. But it just, but when I know that my teaching around yoga is the opposite of that, like that is literally the opposite of my teaching. So if I was to do that, how could I on one hand be saying yoga is about being comfortable, and like, how can I say that yoga is one thing and then show yoga being another thing? And I think you're very like that with your business, where the messages that you make about being wholehearted, about it being soul driven, about it success being about making your life work for you, if you, and because that you teach that because that's what you so clearly obviously believe, and that's what you want for your clients. So if you did get that Airbnb and said, I'm making 6 figures and blah blah, then the like kernel of beauty and that is in your coaching wouldn't there. And I'm not saying that the people who do that are like, that might be their heart, but it's just
and exactly, and that's it. And like for some people that it might be like, for some people that might be absolutely their truth, and they might like, that might be their thing, and they might teach with a lot more substance than, but it's interesting like how I automatically turn off from that now. And I think more and more people are starting to turn off from that, because it doesn't feel, it like, again, it just doesn't feel reflective of what we want to see now. And I'm really more aware of like my business wanting to be a reflection of the way that I would love the world to be, which is not all of that basically. And it isn't like money, because I think money's really important, and I think money, as we've talked about before, is safety, it's being able to create massive change. It's an amazing tool, but it's not the be all and end all. And I think that's the thing.
Isn't it funny,
for me anyway,
we both really like Denise Duffield Thomas, so I love her. I think she's brilliant. And when she poses in a and she says, I've made like 3 million this year, I'm like, go girl, woo, I'm glad to go buy that camper van, go get that lavender farm. Like I don't feel like that about her at all. I'm like, yeah, you go, Denise. And I think it's because she is teaching from heart, so she's got substance to what she's teaching from heart, and it's so clearly not a script. It is like her, and when she's saying those things, and it is interesting. So I love it, like when you posted about your earnings thing, I love that, because it is something we just don't talk about. Like we just don't know what normal is. Like everyone's saying, well, in this much, and actually, if we don't know what is possible and we don't know what other people are earning, then you just don't know where to place yourself. But it's just placed so differently. There's a big difference between saying, okay guys, do you want to look at my tax returns, this is how it is, to being like, you too can earn 7 figures in 2 hours if you, and
it's almost like those numbers become farcical, like you say, like we've just made a joke there out of make 7 figures in 2 hours, because it's become like, in my mind, it is that farcical. The way that people sell it has been so easy to do it. And I think that's another place where I felt a bit guilty, is that all these other businessy people, like, am I really bad because it's not just like really easy?
It's not easy.
Do you know what I mean? But it's, and exactly because it's not, and then try to remind yourself that we've all got like a unique combination of privileges and disadvantages and thing with our background and our history, and it is all different for every single person. The access to resources that we had before we started our businesses, it's all different. And I think without an understanding of that, it's really hard to try and draw parallels to that. So I try and remind myself of that when I get a bit stuck, as to think I've got really no idea what any of these people have had before, or have got going on now, or what really is the thing. Because I think, as you pointed out before, like you can have a 6-figure business, but you will be losing a massive amount of that in VAT if you're UK based, mostly. Like for most businesses, it's all a bit of it's like, what are we trying to compare ourselves to, or what is it that what is it that we're being sold to? Do we really know what that is?
And also, how much of that is are they paying out to Google? How much are they paying Facebook? Like I could make 6 figures in 2 hours if I paid 250,000 to Facebook.
Yeah.
It's the bottom. At the end of the day, it's, are you able to sustain the lifestyle that you want? And I think it's interesting from the north of England, because
yes,
like in the north of England, you don't really need that much money to live quite a nice life.
that's true. We're very lucky on that.
Really lucky, like
I know.
my house, I couldn't own this house anywhere else in the UK.
I know, at the same here. Absolutely. Yeah, definitely.
And so it's having that privilege, but also in the north of England, we have our own, I think your money mindset comes from your family, it comes from
there's a cultural thing. And I think, again, because most of us from up here, we do have like working class backgrounds. Like I wouldn't necessarily say, I think it's one of those interesting things. I feel like I'm culturally working class. That makes sense. Like my mum and dad, like my mum lived was in a council house. My dad like worked in a factory all of his life and stuff like that. But now they've got a really nice house, and now we're definitely still more middle class. But I think that is that culture of it, I think, which I think is really interesting. And from a money mindset point of view, it is really fascinating. I can remember my dad saying we'd have to win the lottery before we could buy that house, and then they did buy it actually without winning the lottery. But like that was back when you could get like a 4-bedroomed house for 100 grand in Gateshead.
There's a lot of inverse snobbery up here as well. Like I feel like I've had to deal with a lot of who does she think she is, and it's in my head, like it's all in my head. But if I was a doctor, I probably wouldn't feel like that, because I'd be able to say, oh, well, she's the doctor, so like because that's proper graft. I feel like if I was like,
that's a really interesting thing, a proper graft as well. That's a whole other thing as well. And I had someone was saying to us yesterday, he was saying that his partner was saying, oh, Laura works for herself, she probably earns more than me, and she goes off for coffee and has a Friday off and stuff like that. And it's a bit like oh, I'm not working hard at all.
Yeah, that's
such an interesting one.
I feel like I have to say this all the time. I'm always justifying myself. So like I have a really nice membership to a really nice health spa. I've got a David Lloyd membership because but I say, but whenever I say, I'm like, but it's off peak because I can go during the day, and then I feel during the day, and then I have to be like, yeah, but I work in the evenings and the weekends, so that's my only time off. And I had this experience quite recently actually when because I do, my time off is during the day, because obviously I do yoga at the weekends and in the evenings, but also like I'm allowed to design my life how I want. And why am I feeling guilty for enjoying the life that I've spent a really long time working? So when I get it, why am I not allowed to enjoy it? But like I lied to the Tesco delivery man and told him I'd done a night shift. Because he was like, oh, in your pajamas at 10 a.m, nice for some, isn't it? And I was like, I've done a night shift. And it was like, I was like, why do I care what this? I should have been like, yeah, nice for me.
I love it. And that is so interesting. I think that one about like that kind of like feeling that we've got to earn it, and we've got to be working really hard, but like sitting at the computer isn't really like working hard, and like all of that kind of stuff. I think is really fascinating how that sits.
Maybe that is what's holding us back.
Maybe it is a bit of that.
There's probably truth in both. I definitely hold myself back. Like I've really had to work with, so when we're talking about money archetypes, like I don't spend my money ever. So because I don't want people like, and I think it's because I'm a yoga teacher, I feel really connected to the people who give me money. So it feels like I don't want them to see me. I feel like it would be disrespectful if I like came in with a Louis Vuitton bag and was like, look at this Louis Vuitton bag I bought, guys. Like, give me 12 quid for a yoga class. I feel like that was, I feel like that's really disrespectful. So like I only bought a car like a year ago. Having a car just felt like such a, like, who am I to have a car? And oh my God, can I afford a car? And it's just what I believe, like going on holiday, buying myself, like I do buy nice skincare, I'm not gonna lie.
I was gonna say there's been a few times I've had like a massive beauty pie haul. And I thought, and I put this on Instagram because people are gonna think I'm like, does she think she is buying stuff on beauty pie? Oh my God.
That's, isn't isn't it? It's like I think that's an aspirational lifestyle because it's holding us back, is thinking, and actually I love, because I've got beauty pie as well, so I would love to see your beauty pie haul.
Yes.
I'd be like, what have you got? Have you had
them? I'll post it next time.
But I know exactly who does she think she is with all of that. So like I started a house account because I've had loads of stuff done in my house, and I started a house account, which I was really enjoying. And then I had to stop it because I was like, I feel so uncomfortable people seeing that I'm buying a new front door, that I'm like buying a new pillow. And these things aren't extravagant when you think of like influencers, like hauls. But it just felt, I would just die if someone was like, where's the money coming from? And it probably does hold me back, because I never post what I do in the day things. And people are always asking us like, well, how do you spend your time? And I think people would be really interested in it if I was like, this is like the makeup of my day. I just couldn't. And that is probably a mindset thing.
It is interesting. Maybe we need to challenge each other. Me to post my beauty pie hauls and you to post more about what you did during the day. But it is that thing. I think there is. I think this is the thing about mindset, because there's always, and I suppose about a lot of things that we talk about today, there's always more to do. There's always more abundance out there to claim. There's more things you can do. There's always more. And I think, like I say, for me, I think the part of what I've been like getting my head around is like, how do I energetically manage that without it feeling like it's filling a hole up rather than it's expansive? That's the thing for me a bit.
Flipped and reversed the idea of abundance though. So the idea of abundance is that you feel abundant because you've got everything you need in this moment, and everything else. Abundance is about knowing that you are enough and that you already have everything you need within yourself, rather than being about claiming things from the outside. And I feel like the conversation around abundance and manifestation has become, what's the next thing I can get? Being like, I have enough. Like abundance is like a feeling and a state rather than a what can I get.
That's really interesting, I think, definitely, because it's easy to to just, and it's that accumulation as well, isn't it? Like that sometimes feels uncomfortable to me as well. There's just like this feeling that you have to be constantly accumulating more stuff and more things. But I think that's such a important one to remember when it comes to the abundance conversation, about what people, because I think that's automatically abundance. It's almost like, for me, like my automatic associations with money, but actually it's not. That's not what abundance is. But I think we've been a little bit conditioned, I think, through the industry to relate it to that.
But I think one of the reasons why money is so toxic is not money itself, but the conversation about why it can go into toxic thing is, again, and equating it with food. But I think the relationship that you have with food is probably mirrored in the relationship that you have with money. Like
definitely, yeah.
I really suffered with binge eating when I was younger, and if you look at the way that I am with money, I am like, obviously this is a very offensive term, but if I would probably be like a money bulimic, where I restrict myself so much and then I snap and I spend loads of money in 3 months. It's almost like I can't control myself, and then straight away I'm back to like really like
dieting but with money.
And it's the same with my business as well, where I'll go all out and then I'll burn out. So I have these cycles. And I think where money and food are really similar is that they're both things that you can't abstain from in our culture. So if you have a problem with like alcohol, or if you have a problem with like cocaine, you can remove yourself from situations, but money and food are things that you're having to deal with. And where food, there's like conversations about it, like look at you really weird if you were like, oh, I think I've got some kind of like unhealthy relationship with money, and people would be like, what are you talking about? Like, that's but actually I think there's a lot. I think everybody probably has unhealthy, there's obviously a spectrum, and some people are super unhealthy, some people are, but I think everybody probably has something to work through with their relationship with money.
Definitely, without a doubt. I think again, for anyone who's watching or listening, I think Denise Duffield Thomas was a great like first place to start with all of this. Like her books was what opened up like my experience of money mindset and really understanding what that is. And it comes down to everything, like how we like what we price our services at. And again, this is the thing, like for some people, I'm guessing for people who do charge 20k for their services, for example, like they must have a rock solid money mindset. But at the same time, but also the question that comes up for me, is it ethical even if you do to charge that much? But if what they're offering in return for that money is well worth it, then yeah, it would be worth it, wouldn't it? But
I wouldn't blink if Denise Duffield Thomas was like, I've got a thing, it's 20 grand. I'd be like, oh,
yeah.
I wish I had the money to pay for that. I wouldn't like, I would be like, again, snaps, Denise, you
yes.
charge. But I know that I've gone the other way with my pricing, where I've priced too low, and then I've been like, oh my God, I'm pricing too low, and then I've like just picked a random really high number, and that hasn't worked either because it hasn't been aesthetically centered on it, and because it is just because I'm not either.
You've got to have that, and I think with pricing, some of the best advice I have is that it should just feel like on the edge. You should be able to confidently say your price, but kind of feel like a little internal like squish. I think energetically you have to be able to say it. If you can't confidently say your prices, then it's probably a bit too high because you can't energetically align with it, I think. But it is. I think all this stuff, I feel like I could talk to you all day about all this stuff because it is really fascinating, and just being able to, I know that this is going to be shared with a lot of people, but just to have the space to share stuff and to not like have to edit yourself either. Like I say, sometimes I worry about, am I just being bitter? Am I just blocked? Am I just got all these kinds of things? And I probably have a combination of all of those. But at the same time, it's also part of the experience and the journey, I think, is unpicking some of this stuff and what feels aligned to you and what is like, when something doesn't feel good, is it because it's reflecting like the really toxic elements, like you were saying, of our capitalist society? And when we see that, it doesn't feel good. And that's not a mindset thing.
But do you know, again, I know I keep banging the same drum and coming back to this, but this is exactly the same conversations that people have if you call out misogyny within society. So if you call out misogyny, you're going to be told you're bitter, you're jealous, you're a hag. Like, it's why can't women just support women? And you're like, whoa, wait a second. It's not that I don't support her. I just think that what she's doing is like problematic to all women. Am I not allowed to have that, voice that? And I think it's the same messages, and I think it comes down to the fact that women are socialized to just go along with things as well, and we're also socialized to believe that the problem is us, because like, I'm very much a people pleaser. So if I can feel that somebody is like, my first response if somebody is annoyed or angry or anything is to think that, what can I do to make it better? And I think a lot of women feel like that. I think it's just the way that we're socialized, and I know lots of women don't feel like that, but when you
there's a good majority of us that do, isn't there? I think it's really interesting. Definitely, it's a whole thing to, and I just think, like I said, I think in the coaching industry, I think these are really helpful things to be aware of, because a lot of this stuff is like, people will market specifically to some of these insecurities and things that we have in ourselves. So I think it can be really interesting just to be aware, a bit like the food industry and the fashion industry and the skincare industry to a certain degree. It's like being aware of how our insecurities are picked on. The same goes for the coaching industry as well. And I think like one of the biggest examples of that is people, I think, who would very directly sell to make a certain amount of money. So I think that can be, I think some people do it really well, and then I think other people do it and it is just like replicating the way that people sell like stuff that isn't actually, they're selling it in a way that is trying to capitalize on our insecurities or our deepest needs and things as well.
And if you say, oh, you're going to make 6 figures, like you say, so I have tried not to hit that, because I hit that, then I actually, in order to hit 6 figures, I actually need to earn immediately. I have to earn to go from 70,000 to 100,000. You actually need to make 130,000 in order to make what you were making when you were making
before, because of VAT, basically, isn't it? What's the VAT threshold now? Is it about 85k?
83, I think.
83. Because I've always had the number I've always had in my mind that I want to aim for is about 75 in the business. And I don't know, I'll see how I go this. I feel like I might get to about 60, I think, this year.
which is
going
brilliant.
off what I've done so far. And it is, I just think it is
Brilliant.
amazing.
Like, who makes that? Like the median salary in the Northeast is 23,000.
Yeah, bloody hell, puts it in perspective, doesn't it? So it's but it's not interesting again, like how our money reality is really skewed, I think, a bit by being in this industry. And I should be popping champagne corks all over the place. We're both should in what we earn, but it almost, that is really interesting, because you just saying that like the median earnings in the Northeast is 23k, like how far out of that, certainly for me, being in the industry, like, and where we sit ourselves, it's really fascinating.
Because I would consider, and I think I also feel like it's really, like, I want to say like insensitive to be like, you can earn 8 figures, you can earn 7 figures, you can earn 6 figures, do this, when actually most people are only earning. Does it matter if you said 10 figures, you can earn 10 figures? If you're earning 24,000, 6 figures is going to sound very much like 7 figures, 8 figures, because it's so out of that
reality, isn't it? Yeah, it is. That's just been quite a thing for me there, just putting it into perspective of like how completely different the reality is around money.
Like, and again, I know I keep saying about this, about us living in the Northeast, like that 100k, that elusive 100k, which obviously comes from America. So also it's American. So 70k probably is here.
Is about 100k, is that, it is really 6 figures, isn't it? So, in some ways, yeah.
But also like up in the Northeast, that would mean you could buy a house for 1 year's salary.
Yeah.
Literally, like you could be mortgage free in a year if you didn't spend anything.
Yeah.
Whereas down south, that wouldn't go as far. So it just feels really strange to be like, you've got to go for this particular number. And that's
because it is just and I think, as I've said in other episodes of the show, like it is just a very arbitrary number. It doesn't actually doesn't really mean anything. And I think you have to put it into perspective of like actually what, and something that has been helpful for me is looking at what would I, to live like a really like wonderful life. And to be fair, I do that now really, but to really wonderful life, to not have any debt, to be able to go on like holidays and things like that, what would that need to look like earnings wise? And I think that is about 75k for me when I've worked it out roughly. So yeah, it's better off having money goals, I think, isn't it, that are connected to what actually is going to make a difference in your life, rather than just like a number because it sounds, and it's what we're kind of socialized to think that we need to have to be successful.
And I find having money really uncomfortable. So I'm much more likely to, if I get spare money, I'm like to overpay the mortgage or put it in my pension or get it out of my hands as much as possible.
Yeah.
Because I find actually, or just crack and spend it on something. Like I find, and like me and my husband, like my husband's he works in corporate and he's a marketing person, he does SEO, and he's always had a really steady good wage, but like his wage is like totally normal, like good wage, and yet it's not anything like what we're talking about. We're not talking about like it's and I earn more than him as well.
I earn more than my partner as well, and it's something, isn't it, to think, I think in a relationship, isn't it?
And he loves it.
And that's good. That's nice, isn't it? James couldn't give it, like he's totally nonplussed about it at all.
And he just thinks, when am I allowed to retire?
When am I
allowed to go? We don't have kids, is what I was, but we live, compared to the lifestyle of other people, we have really low outgoings. The biggest outgoing in my life is my studio rent. So that is a big outgoing. But when it comes to my life, like we don't have kids. We don't we have the cheapest car that it's possible to run. And so I'm like, why? It's obviously something internal that's making me like go put another business on. I run like and I think there's part of me that's like justifying why I don't have kids, because it's like, if you don't have kids and you've got all this time, so it feels like if I was like, I just spend my time like drinking champagne, floating around in David Lloyd, like I would feel like it's about self-worth, isn't it? And it's so, if I'm not going to have kids as my legacy, then I need to be able to build this like mega business. And I've had to do a lot of internal work around that, because I don't want got no interest in having them. But why do you, as a woman, like, what is the point of you? Like, I know that sounds...
yeah, but I think this is what a lot of women who have decided to not have children have got that kind of thing that they need to figure out, and not that they have to figure out, because at the end of the day, you just being existing is absolutely fine. And I think, again, it's how society puts onto us all of these like demands, basically, as women, about what we should be or how our lives should be. And again, I think part of it's all intertwined in this general conversation that we're having, because deciding not to have children, earning more than your partner, doing something that's not necessarily like a traditional woman's thing. It's all really interesting part of that. And it's also for you, you can just be you, but it's that feeling of obviously for you, I need to have these fabulous businesses, which you do have anyway, but
it feels like then I can justify. Because you hear from, and I think it probably goes the other way as well. So if you have kids, you're always being like, if I didn't have, like, you're still, because I hear this all the time. I'm always saying to women when they're like, you spend an hour doing yoga every day and you get to do this and you run 4 businesses. And I'm like, yeah, because I don't have any kids. Like, it's so ridiculous to compare. Like, but I think women who do have children are compared, like, women are just compared to each other across the board without taking into consideration the different things that are going on in those women. It's like a woman is a woman, and you're like, oh
no, but not one homogenous massive. And I always remember this coming up because I used to do youth work, and people used to talk about the youth as like this one big glob of people with the same interests and the same needs, and it goes the same for women. It's all completely different. And and I think part of that is the things that we think, or that we internally, because like you say, you're like, we're all internally like pressured to do things a certain way, like you say, to be people pleaser, to all these things, in the way that we feel that we have to justify ourselves as well.
Do you find that when you're not running your business and you're not with your kids, do you know what to do with yourself?
Yeah, it's definitely challenging, because I feel like I should be doing something to do. Usually to be fair, I'm better than I used to be. And I think going back before the pandemic, I would really, really struggle to not be doing some business. Like, at one point I was not doing any exercise. Like, I would drop Finny off at nursery and I would come straight home, and I would feel like I'd have to be there on the computer doing something, answering emails or whatever. And I couldn't switch off, and I couldn't just take an hour to go and do some exercise or whatever, to do a workout or anything. I think I was going on a Thursday. I was doing a class on a Thursday morning at one point, and that was like really, that was amazing for me, because I was like letting myself have that time. But I think I was working in the coffee shop before in flat caps. I was going early and trying to do something. But it's taken a little while, I think, to just be able to just not do anything. But at the same time, like, the way that I've got the week set up, because what tends to happen is, what I'd love is when Freya starts school, to keep having the Friday off and to just do whatever like I want to do that has nothing to do with the business. Because really, at the moment, a Friday when she has a nap, when I'm off with Freya on a Friday and she has a nap, that's my little window where I will just sit with a cup of coffee and a magazine, and it's bliss, because there's no internal pressures on us. I can just sit there and just do anything. So I'm getting better at it, but it's still something that's a bit tricky, I think.
It's really, I think there's this huge pressure to be like almost performing your free time. So one of the things that, like, bringing it back to the money thing, is this is such a first world problem, and I actually don't know that if I can say this out loud, but like, I've always wanted to have spare money, and now I have spare money, I'm like, oh, I don't actually know what I want to do with it. Like, so do you know when you write down, you're like, oh, I want to go and do this and I want to go and do that, and actually quite like, I'm not massively into holidays. Like, I like going on hikes, but not really long ones that are far away. I like going with my sister to the local lunchtime Italian. Like, I think we've been to every Sambuca's in the whole of the Northeast. Like, I just don't I have expensive taste when it comes to skincare. I have expensive taste when it comes to gym leggings. But other than that, I'm like, oh, I want this money, but I don't really know who I am as a person who has money and how to spend it.
Yeah. That's an interesting idea. It's almost like an identity thing, isn't it? Like you were saying earlier on about the about it being the security thing, but realizing that it's never really going to be completely safe. But like, it's because I do think like having money, it is like there's people got money, and often what I say to a lot of my clients, especially in the current times that we're in with the cost of living and stuff, and not at all wanting to be insensitive, because obviously lots of people are really struggling, but generally speaking, I think by and large, most of the people who are paying out, who would have been paying out 1, 2, 3 grand for coaching, that they're still going to have 1, 2, 3 grand for coaching now. And that's just the nature of the massively unequal society that we live in. But in terms of, and I think there's just people who have got money into, and I don't know if it's a cultural thing a little bit as well. I don't know. That's an interesting one. But yeah, I think it's like all the things that we like pick up from our friends and family and things as we grow up and stuff as well. It's weird.
I've always felt really lucky to have been from a family that never had much money, because my standard of having loads of money is really low. So I feel like the richest person in the world if I can buy the shampoo I want.
Yeah.
Like when I first moved in with my husband, one of the like sexiest things that ever happened was that his car broke down. Like it was what, like our 10th date or something, and I already like, you know, really liked him, and this wasn't why I married him, but one of the indicators. And I've been with like all of the men that I'd been with before had been like, I genuinely went out with someone that didn't wear shoes, like wear shoes, refused, and he like said that shoes were a reflection of the capitalist society. And he wouldn't wear shoes. And I remember like arguing with him, being like, please, when we go on marathons, can you please wear shoes? And he was like, no, I won't wear shoes. And I remember having a conversation with my mum about him. I know I'm going in a segue, but
this is good.
And I was like, it's just that he doesn't wear shoes, and I don't know, I just feel like maybe I deserve more in my life than someone who I have to beg to wear shoes. And my mum was just like, but he's really nice, and you can have rich or you can have nice. And I was like, but
it's interesting one as well, isn't it?
I was like, but why do I like, why?
Yeah.
Why? Surely there's rich, nice people. Why can't I just, in my hypothetical husband that hasn't even come along yet, why are you making me go out? Why are you making me marry a man who doesn't wear shoes? Like, I'm not in love with him. Can I find someone else, please? Yeah. But then I met my husband, he comes from a very stable family. If anything, he's like very stable, whereas I'm not. Like in all of our personalities, we're the complete opposite, and we're just a perfect example of opposites attract. And he had this clapped out old Ford Focus, which I just thought was like a man with a car, his own car. Oh my God, like it's snowing. Yeah. Gonna drive home, like I don't have to go and get the bus. It's amazing. And he's got more than one pair. He'll wear it if I go to a wedding, he'll wear a suit. What is like, I'm practically a Tory now. And like his car broke down because it was like an old clapped out thing, and he was mortified that his car had broken down because he was like really into me, and he would like his car had broken down, and he was like, I'm sorry, but I'm gonna have to ring the AA. And I was like, he has an AA membership. Oh my God, he has an AA membership. That was like, this man is an adult.
Marry this man.
I'm gonna marry him. He's an adult. But he doesn't have. Another moment when I realized that like I felt so rich was when we were shopping, and he just picked up coffee, and he was like, I'm going to put this on, and I was like, that's the most expensive coffee. That's that much. And he was like, oh, I didn't even look at the price. I just like this. I just got Dow Egberts because I like Dow Egberts. And I was like, like mind blown. Like people live like that. And it just made me feel so rich. So in a way, I'm grateful. That's my level of, but then do I need to go to the next level? Should I just be happy being grateful for my Dow Egberts? Or should like, when all of these things, because I am happy going to Sambuca's with my sister.
Yeah.
I am like, I've got an off-peak membership to David Lloyd. What more do I want? Made it. Like, and
I think that it is that thing, like what we were saying earlier on, wasn't it? Is this kind of like, when do we need more? What's the relationship with wanting more in our lives and our businesses and our bank accounts and everything like that? And what purpose does it serve? Like, in what ways are we being influenced by what society is telling us that we need? Is it an internally driven thing or is it an externally driven thing? I suppose it's a good question to think about, isn't it?
If you had all the money in the world, what would you upgrade? If money wasn't a problem, what would you upgrade?
I'll probably get a kitchen extension and a bedroom, like an extra bedroom.
Would you stay?
That's probably what I would do.
You'd stay in the house you're in?
I think I would, because, and I've had this thought, part of us would love to like live by the coast, but I really like where we live. I really like the community. I really like my friends are literally around the corner, that we can walk to each other's house, that we can get pissed on the night and then walk home. I really like that we can have a drink in the garden and just walk home. And I really like the community where we are and the schools and stuff. So I wouldn't change where we live. I would just make my house nicer. And that's probably the main thing. And yeah, and I wouldn't really buy like any different clothes, because to be fair, like I do, because this is the thing you were saying there about like where we're calibrated at. I think like I have always liked nice things, and sometimes probably got myself into a bit of debt, like going after like nice things. But generally speaking, if I want something, I'll find a way of getting it most of the time. Apart from, but I don't really go after like really big, expensive, crazy things. I don't know, it's an interesting one, but it would be more work to the house probably. What about you, if you had all the money in the world?
I love my car. My car's like the best. Like I've got I've got the second top Kia Picanto. So
it's awesome.
So it's like it's the car that I want, because it's really easy to drive.
Yeah.
I got an automatic one because I do a lot of city driving. So I wouldn't get a new car. Also because I love my car, so I wouldn't get a new car. If money wasn't a problem, I would probably get one of those really lovely houses in Jesmond.
Oh yes. My builders are working on at the minute. You've seen how I've had my builders in. They're working on one of the really posh houses in Jesmond at the minute.
But it would have to
tell us all about it.
But that's not like a little jump, because the thing with our house is that because where we are, we're in the council estate that's just like next to the really posh houses, and we bought our house before all the house prices went crazy.
Yeah.
So if we wanted the next one up, if we wanted to go into the next one up, it would be like 3 times our mortgage.
Yeah.
And it would probably be further away from the Dean. So in order for us to move, we're talking like
massively. Yeah.
It would have to be like a £1.6 million house, which is a money object. I would do that. But then I'm like, but I also like the fact that I have a cleaner, because my house is tiny, and so I have a cleaner that comes in, which again, like when you talk about women's, like how dare I in during the day, I haven't got kids.
To be fair, that's something I would definitely, and that's something that like that I think hopefully like soon would be able to comfortably afford a cleaner. I think that would be something that I'd really like to have, because it would make a big difference to our weekends and how we spend our time and stuff like that. I think that would make a big difference. Yeah, and it is a thing I think that we can have a block around. But I've got like friends who, like all of my like closest friends, like my mum friends and stuff, that most of them, like 2 of them work in the NHS, and other ones are like stay-at-home mums and stuff. And a couple of them, like they have cleaners, and they don't even bat an eyelid. It's really interesting, isn't it?
In our home, we have a cleaner. Yeah. This is where my money goes. We have a cleaner. We have a gardener. We have someone that comes and washes the windows.
Yes, we've got a window washer.
Have someone who comes and valets the car. We have someone that is like, if there's like, we never paint and decorate ourselves. We never like, we just pay other people to do it, because we just don't want to.
Yeah, and that's fine. Yeah,
it just feels really uncomfortable to say, to be like, like that, especially because I'm a woman without kids. So the argument I always justify it with is, but I could literally make 8 times the amount in that time.
Yeah. And you know what though, you shouldn't have to justify it. You shouldn't have to justify having comfort and nice things and anything that you want. And I think this is the thing, isn't it? Like, we don't have to justify anything that we want.
No.
And we get to set our lives up. And I think that's one of the, and you don't have to be a coach or a yoga teacher, or even when you're in business, to have an element of this, I think. But I do think you get a lot more freedom when you are working for yourself. But you don't have to justify, but we don't really, like, we do that. But I think we shouldn't have to justify what we do, how we spend our money.
Have you got anything in your life at the minute that is like a really easy win for you that you just haven't done? An example, I noticed that I do this all the time, and an example of this is that for ages me and Andy only had 1 glass, and it just happened that Andy smashes every glass that we ever own, and we had one glass that was plastic that was left, and we like literally would be like, have you finished with the water glass, because I want a glass of water, and we would fight over this glass. And it was just totally normal to be like, oh, have you got the glass? I was quite water. And then Andy's parents came over and they were like, what is this? Because they were like, can we have a glass? And I was like, you're gonna have to drink out
One.
and go on between us all. And it was during COVID, so like people weren't coming around the house, and obviously everyone's social norms went a bit off kilter. But they came around and they were like, why have you only got one glass? And we were like, all of them are smashed, haha. And they were like, can you not afford another glass? Like they were like having this like
are you all right?
All right, do we need to step in kind of intervention? And we were like, oh no, it's just because it just hadn't crossed our mind that we could uplift our life in such a way. And they came round they went home and came back with all these pint glasses. And they like gave us obviously Andy like smashed. It was really funny because his mum handed him them, and then he immediately lost his balance and fell over backwards. And me and his mum and dad were like, oh, is he gonna smash it? And he just stood up and we all started laughing, and he was like, what are you laughing at? And we were like, you know what, it doesn't matter, Andy.
It isn't interesting. I think just looking at for anyone just looking at how to spend the money, what you spend it on, and because I've just bought, it sounds so random, I've just bought a rotary washing line. And literally I resisted buying, like I'll spend money on all sorts of other things, and I've resisted buying a rotary washing line for years. I really don't know why. I've just not wanted to spend money on it and I think it like tells me something about me, because it's not particularly exciting, although it is exciting. But it's not like, I've got one in the Amazon Prime thing, and it was £75, but it's a Barbantia one, so it's a posh one. And I just thought, like, why have I resisted buying a rotary washing line? What's that all about?
Is that, I wonder if there's like some like
bizarre.
Yeah, who do you think you are with your spinny washing?
With my spinny washing line? I don't know whether or not though it's because it's like, and I was having a conversation with the builder as well, and I was saying like, we really need some new windows upstairs, but I was like, I don't want to spend like £1.50 on windows because it's fucking windows. Like I'd much rather have something like, it's not very sexy, is it, having to buy new PVC windows? And I think it's like all these little clues. Actually, it's just really interesting having this conversation with you, actually, because I've just realised that says something about me.
Yeah,
I think in terms of the way that I spend things, but I just bit the bullet and bought a rotary washing line. But I did buy a really posh one.
Would you buy one for your mum if your mum needed one?
Yeah, I would. Yeah, definitely. But she's got one, and she's always been the one who's going, oh, Laura, you need to get a washing line. What's wrong with you? Get a proper washing line. It's weird.
Like berries and fruit. I don't know what that's. We were shopping the other day with my sister, and it's interesting because I'm really tight but in like you in really strange ways.
Yeah.
So when it comes to going out for lunch, I would be like, take my money, I will spend like but it's things like you're saying, like rotary washing lines, or there was strawberries and they were like £2.75, and I was like, I'm not paying that for some berries, I'll have an apple. And like it's really strange, isn't it? Like the things, and everyone's must be so individual. But skincare, and shampoo. I've spent a ridiculous amount on beauty pie, but it makes us feel really good. I always ask people who come on the podcast, but what's your version of success? Oh, this is such an interesting question, because it's a question that I ask myself, and I just don't know when it comes to an outside thing. I think it's something that I've been answering through the whole of this conversation.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because I've been considering this. If someone could wave a magic wand tomorrow and make me feel completely contented and happy all the time, but I didn't have the drive that I do now, would I take it? And the answer is probably no. Because I think, like I was saying earlier, that there are lows, but there are also such good highs in this business, and there's such good. So my definition of success always used to be that I wanted to own my own home. I wanted to be able to get my nails done regularly. I wanted to be able to get my hair done every 6 weeks. I wanted to have a car, and I wanted to be able to go for lunch whenever I wanted and get a salad from Pret whenever I wanted and not have to think about it. And I've got that.
You've got that?
Yeah. So I think this is such a like first world problem, but I think it is an identity crisis that people have when they get to this stage in their business, is when you've got everything that you first wanted, where do you go? Do you then create other goals, or do you just do you enjoy having the success that you have?
That's a perfect way, I think, to kind of get sum up at the end, because I think that is it. I think you get to a certain point and you have achieved the things that you wanted to achieve initially that you set out to do. Like, where do you go from here? And actually, you just saying that, I think, has made me think that's probably where I've been at, I think, this year in some ways.
Because obviously the COVID made me, because I think if COVID hadn't happened, I wouldn't be questioning what I wanted to do in the same way, because I always wanted to have a really, like, I wanted my in-person business was such a massive, like, my next goal would have been to have a huge city centre studio that, like, where I had loads of teachers teaching, and it was like a cafe as well as, and doing the online membership and seeing how great working online and how many more people you can connect with, how you can connect with them in a different way, and then when I started doing the yoga teacher training, and again, we did, because we had to go online during COVID, I did a lot of online teaching there, and also like getting little baby yoga teachers and making sure that when they jump out the nest, they can fly, because baby yoga teachers hit the floor so much. There's a lot that, God, this is an entire different conversation. But doing yoga teacher training is if you do any yoga studio coaching, they're like, if your business is failing, put a teacher training on, because it's a cash injection. Obviously, what they don't want is loads of yoga teachers then, because they're training up their own competition.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of business part of it that maybe gets missed out in the training. It's seen more as like a fun thing to do, rather than actually you want to be a yoga teacher. And whereas my training is very, okay guys, strap yourself in, because we're going to be yoga teachers and this is how you do it. I want you all to succeed. And this is the first year I've really been able to run it in the way that I wanted to run it, because the first 2 years, because of COVID, it was online, and then in the second year we were having to social distance. And so the first year that I've been able to do my curriculum, and it's so exciting because like half of the class are already teaching yoga, and like they're coming out with brands, and they're coming out and they're like, I love the marketing side of it, and I was really frightened of social media and now I'm not. And I'm like, oh my God, I can make, instead of just teaching classes in a studio, which I love, but I could teach people to do that. And if I can reach 1,000 people in a studio, if I could teach 1,000 people to teach 1,000 people, like, it feels like the ripple effect and the change I can make by being like, because there are toxic messages out there. If I can train people from the start to be more ethical and have those considerations, then, so if COVID hadn't happened, my idea of success, I'm sorry, I'm very long-winded, and
that's interesting.
I think it changed my idea of what success is and how. And also I think one thing that I haven't said about success is that, and it's like a given with us, like we don't talk about it, and I think maybe we should have a little caveat with it. We did a little bit earlier on, but is that we're having this conversation, but the underlying thing that we're just not even saying, because to us it's so obvious, is that our first mission is to help people.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's interesting because it's easy to just, because it is a given, that's what we're here for, isn't it? And it's easy to forget to actually articulate that sometimes.
And I can't, like, I'm sure you get these as well, where like I got an email off a woman 2 days ago, and she was like, oh, I know that I emailed her about something. I think it was just a email marketing thing where I emailed everyone. And she got me and she was like, oh, I'm sorry I haven't been in touch, but every like 3 times a week I log in. I haven't really been interacting with you, but I do your classes 3 times a week, and you're the highlight of my week, and knowing that you're there. And it can be so lonely, can't it? Because you're like, why am I doing this? Who is listening to my podcast? Like, I'm literally like arse on the table. I'm vomited me spleen up. Everything. Hello, is anybody listening? And I think which is really different to teaching in a studio, because if you teach in a studio, if somebody likes it or doesn't like it, you get immediate
feedback. Yeah.
So you like teaching in a studio is much, and which is why I'll never give up doing retreats. I'll never give up doing like in-person classes, because like I get so much energy from it. Whereas I was saying, my thing with when I was just doing online stuff and didn't get any of that back is that when you have an online business, it's like playing tennis, but without anyone hitting the ball back. So you're having to hit the balls out, but you're not getting any feedback. And then what happens is, so if you build a website and then you don't get, there's no fanfare. It's, you've just built this like monument and you just will see it. And then 10 years down the line, I'm still getting people commenting on blog posts that I did 10 years ago. And people
me too. Yeah.
And it's, so I have to remember that the stuff that I'm doing now, there are people listening. And it's so easy to say that refrain when you first start with, if only one person gets changed by mine, then I'm grateful. And then when you do it, you're like, hello, people, pray. And it's not when you need the praise, it's just feedback. Because if you worked in an office, people would be like, oh, you're doing it good or you're not doing it good. Yeah. And I always feel do you never get this where just at the point where you're like, oh, for God's sake, I give up, I'm not doing this.
Yes.
Out of the woodwork will be like,
definitely. Every single time. In fact, now when I have a business bubble, I welcome it because I know I'm on the verge of something positive coming.
Every single time someone will come out. And like crazy things as well. Like my dad died and doing your classes was the thing that brought me back to, I did your grief classes or like stuff where you're like, bloody hell, like I just didn't understand. Yeah. And I don't think you can think about it too much because I don't think you can do it if you do.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
Because you would just become like such an unbearable twat. People are like, to help people. Like I do it to help me. That's how I teach.
Yeah.
Because I need connection with other people. I don't understand what the hell life is. I don't know why.
Yeah.
I don't know what's going on. And so I need to like have those deeper conversations with people and know that there's other people asking the same questions as me and having that thing together. So I think success is bumbling through life and not going too crazy in the process, maybe.
Yeah. No, I think that sounds good to me, definitely. And just to finish off, just to say, we're yet to have a proper conversation about this, but there is a retreat potentially on the cards, isn't there? Me and Jo have ran retreats before together. We've done 2. And we think the time might be right to have another one. So if you like the sound of hanging out with me and Jo at a spa hotel with lots of yoga and like deep and meaningful conversations, then watch out for something that might be coming at some point. I'm just going to keep it vague. But thank you so much, Jo.
You're welcome, Laura. Thank you so much. Can I have one last thing to say before we go?
Of course you can. Yeah.
I am so pleased that you have this podcast.
Oh,
honestly, I found your podcast at a point where I was like so obviously I've known you for years, and I find business podcasts, and I actually only listen to yours and Denise Duffield Thomas because I try and listen to others and I'm just like, oh, I can't deal with it.
Yeah.
And found it at a point where I was just like, I was listening to loads of stuff about, I was listening to stuff about like email marketing and doing a membership, and it was all like, you should segment your audience and you should be doing this and you should be doing this. And these are 10 reasons why, if you don't do this, you're going to fail. And I was like, oh my God. And then I was like, doesn't Laura have a podcast? I'm sure her podcast will be, I'm sure I'll want to listen to her podcast. So I listened to it and I was like, and it was the one, I think it was maybe like 6 months ago, where it was like, what to do when you're overwhelmed.
Oh yes, yeah.
And I was like, that's the one I need to listen to, and I listened to it, and then I just binge listened to all of them, and I was like, oh, I love this. So I listened to the podcast. I was so pleased when you said that could we have a conversation on it, and also I did your course about how to make a multimedia podcast, and it is such a good idea of a way to do your content. It's such a good idea.
Yeah.
It's such a good idea. You do 20 minutes of, you batch load your podcasts, you do it at the same time as you do your YouTube. That's your blog, you SEO your blog. Hello. And then you've got all of your Instagram posts, because you've got, and it has completely changed how I do my market. And that was such a good. If you haven't done a course, go do a course, because it was great.
I'm going to clip that as a testimonial.
Do it.
Stick it on a sales page. Thank you. No, that's lovely. And every time someone tells us that they listen to this, or they've listened to an episode, or they've watched an episode on YouTube or something, I get so chuffed, because I love doing this. I really, to be fair, it's one of those things that's really changed my business, because like marketing's a massive chunk of what we have to do as business owners. And I think if you can do something you really enjoy, and like, I love just talking shit on the podcast and sharing stuff that's hopefully helpful and things like that. So I do love it. And yeah, so thank you.
I think it's so important as well. Like I think I'm gonna have a mission this week where if I'm consuming content for free off somebody and I enjoy it, I'm gonna tell them.
Yeah, I think that's a really useful thing, because there's lots of people making stuff, and I think, because I try and do that. If I read something, I'll find or I'll listen to something and it's really helpful, I try and let people know, because it is useful. It's nice to get feedback. It's karma, putting nice stuff out into the world.
Yeah, it is.
It'll come back.
Like, just to know that there is someone at the other side of that tennis court putting it back.
Putting it back. Yeah, definitely. And where can people find you online if they want to go and check you out? What's your handles and your website and stuff?
I've got millions, because it depends what you want. So if you wanted to do yoga with us, I've got Happy Yoga Newcastle, which is the yoga studio in town, Newcastle town, obviously. Yeah. That's the one in the UK, not the one in the Australia, because I do get all that.
Get that.
Then I've got an online community where we have 5 live classes a week, and then we also have, I always say we, it's me. The man behind the iron curtain is me. I am the we in this situation. And then we've got lots of things going on there, which is a lovely online community, and that's Happy Yoga Community. And then I have a podcast called Relax, You're a Yoga Teacher, which is all about setting up as a yoga teacher, where I talk to myself in my summer house about what it's like to be a yoga teacher. And then I have the teacher training courses as well. So that's at Newcastle Yoga School. So if you ever fancy becoming a yoga teacher, it's out there.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jo.
You're welcome, Laura. Thanks for having me.